Hello and welcome to ShuffleIT's Dominion Championship 2017. This is round 2 action. We had a bye in round 1 because of the seeding. So we are playing Happy Sardar here in round 2. Looking at the board, there's peasant on it. Usually want to open with a peasant, and it looks like I'll pair it with a spice merchant. Those things aside, there are quite a few exciting things on the board. We have good draw in Lost City. We have an impressive gainer in Procession. We also have Rogue, and there's also Transmogrify, Groundskeeper, a lot of powerful cards on the board. So a couple of my initial thoughts were, okay, Procession on Transmogrify is a neat trick because you don't actually lose the Transmogrify. Something Titan Drake wrote about in his article on the forum, useful Dominion interactions or something. So I remember that. Thank you, Titan Drake. And also, whatever you trash with your Procession, Rogue can recover it. So those are some of the things that I thought about early in the game here. I do go for a Transmogrify on my turn 3. This could have been another Spice Merchant or double Peasant, but the Transmogrify is there to help clean up the estates. The Spice Merchant is unable to do so. It also, like I mentioned before, sets me up for some Procession Transmogrify tricks in the future. Final initial thought from me here was that there's Groundskeeper, and Groundskeeper loves plus buy, but the plus buy is not so easy to come by on this board. There's only Peasant, and that isn't the best plus buy in the world. So it seems like you'll have to rely on your teacher token for that. So my opponent gets to 5 and goes for a Rogue, which is a little bit scary, honestly. The worst case scenario with the Rogue is that it flips your advanced Traveler and puts it in the bin, and then your opponent plays the Rogue a second time and recovers that Rogue. Now here, I was hoping, or not hoping, but on 4 I seriously considered a second Spice Merchant just because of the Procession around. I can process the Spice Merchant, probably get a Lost City out of it, and accelerate my trashing that way. But I don't get to 4, I get to 3, and I think Chariot Race is better than Silver, because Silver is a stop card, Chariot Race is not a stop card. It lets me cycle my soldiers up to fugitives more quickly, etc, etc. My opponent's Rogue came out but flipped a couple of estates, which is fortunate for me. Pretty happy to see that my soldiers are safe in my hand right now. And he gets a Lost City on the 5. Now, like I mentioned before, the Rogue is scary. I do not want to lose either my soldier or my fugitive here. And I did think about picking up a Rogue just to defend against my opponent's Rogue. I also thought about Procession again here, but I felt the Lost City at this point was the better card to buy. I could get the Rogue on this turn if I need to, meaning if my opponent flips one of my Travelers and puts it into the bin. So he doesn't do that so far, so I'm pretty happy to pick up the Lost City instead, and still maybe pick up another Lost City here, just to get the draw going. I want to get these Travelers advanced as quickly as possible. There's a lot of powerful things to do on this board with Procession, and there's also Rogue to recover things that you trash with Procession. So the quicker we get our draw up is the quicker we could do all these fancy things. By the way, I do not have a very good handle on these fancy things at all, especially when they involve Procession, but we'll do our best. Again here, the deliberation on whether or not to buy the Rogue, and I decide to buy the Rogue now. The deck is becoming ever so thinner, making the Rogue more likely to hit one of my good cards. I would like to be able to recover those good cards. So here, I'm going to use the Transmogrify on the estate. Initially, I had envisioned transforming these estates into peasants. As it turns out, I felt like the Chariot Race was better at the point in time and for my deck state than the Peasant. I had 2 Travelers going up the line so far, and I felt, well, okay, that's reasonable. So here I draw the Disciple with the Rogue and the Chariot Race, and I decide to go for the Rogue, and this is a nice turn up for me here. I expect to pick up a Rogue, but instead I don't. I actually pick up my opponent's Fugitive, and I strongly disagree with this. Not only does he give up his Fugitive, but he gives me a Disciple, and Disciple is going to be such an important card here. Arguably more important than teacher even. I do not agree at all with him giving up the fugitive. He probably thought that he could recover the fugitive with the rogue, but it was a discipled rogue. I would pick up whatever he put into the bin. I I was very surprised that my opponent gave me a third traveler there. So now I have two disciples in my deck and a teacher, and my opponent, I've cut him off from advancing in the line at this point. I don't think he has anything other than a peasant at this point in the game. So that was the turning point of the game. I felt there goes my opponent's peasant, and that is where he is on the peasant line at turn 8 in the game, and that's not where you want to be. Gladly putting the spice merchant into the bin there because, well, I could recover it if I want to, and I will. I still have a couple coppers that I would like to get rid of. So pilgrimage for my opponent, that is also something. I didn't talk about that at the beginning, but I saw that as well. A lot of sources for gaining here, right? Potential pilgrimage in my mind initially was something like Lost City, Procession, Transmogrify. I really had my eyes set on doing some Procession, Transmogrify tricks, but it didn't really pan out that way in the game. You'll see how it pans out in the end. Very, very explosive ending, as is typical with Procession. So another Lost City for my opponent. I agree with the Lost City play here. You need to get the draw up and running. And here, remember I told you I had the thought about putting plus buy on one of these piles just so that I can make Groundskeeper a lot better. I decided to go against that thought and put the plus card on my draw card, which is the Lost City. If I didn't see this Lost City in the opening hand, I probably would have had to do it on the Chariot Race. There was a 2 in 3 chance that I would have picked up the Lost City, but Dominion is a funny game. You could miss that and then be set back a turn. So I may have put it on the Chariot Race there, although I could see arguments for not doing that and still sticking it on the Lost City. Now I put it on the Lost City. I felt like I had enough draw in my deck at this point, which is why I was considering putting the plus buy token instead, but I have lost games in the past where I did not put the plus card token first. So I decided to just stick with what I've learned in the past and go after the plus card token on the Lost City pile. So now Procession tricks start to happen. I Transmogrify one of my Chariot Races into Procession, use that Procession on my second Chariot Race to gain another Procession. Here I also use my Procession on a Spice Merchant to pick up a Lost City. And the Rogue nicely picks up my Chariot Races back from the bin. So here I do pick up a Pilgrimage. There's a lot of good cards that I would like to pick up here. Lost City and Procession and Transmogrify seems to be the thing to buy here. And I pick up another Lost City. Now the draw actually comes into play in the remainder of this game. I do need the kind of draw from an improved Lost City to make things work very nicely. Because as you'll see here, I think this is the turn where I stall for a bit. So I do the same trick of turning a Chariot Race into a Procession. And then I'm going to use the Procession, and I use it on the Lost City here. I was considering not doing that, using it on the Transmogrify to gain a Lost City, because I felt like, oh yeah, surely I could draw through. No, look at this. This is 6 cards, and I didn't draw my deck. So it was very important to put the plus card token on the Lost City. I was very happy after I saw this turn here that I did that. I pick up one Groundskeeper here, still entertaining some thoughts of the Groundskeeper dream, but I'm starting to realize now that the game is going to finish far too quickly for me to gain any significant amount of Groundskeepers. I consider Pilgrimage here on 4 because I bought one on my last turn, but I decide not to do it because it gives me a bit more pile control for the end of the game here. Now I do have a points lead through my Chariot Races, which is fortunate. So I don't really have to worry too much about my opponent piling out. I don't think he even has a Procession, so, and he doesn't have a teacher because he gave me his disciple. So I feel like the piles are fairly safe for now. I don't have to worry about a pile out is what I'm saying. Here, the soldier hurts the most it has for the whole game. I consider dropping the Chariot Race, But instead I decided to drop the Disciple because I want to turn this chariot race into a procession. So there's lots of Transmogrify tricks here. Procession on Transmogrify to gain a 5 cost, and then you call that procession on your subsequent turns to gain nice things. So here I had to think for a bit if it was possible to pile out. If my name was Mixinock, I probably would have figured this out already, but I'm not. And I had to think for a bit, and I eventually came up with this way of piling out. If you have a much nicer way to pile out, you could let me know. So I used my Transmogrifies to gain a bunch of processions. My plan was to... I was thinking about how the rogues seem easy to get, because I could use Procession on Procession to gain 5 costs. Not a problem. I have enough processions in my deck to do that. But which pile would I target? Transmogrifies, processions? It wasn't clear to me how to empty any one of those 4 costs. Then it hit me that, hey, you have 100 Transmogrifies on your mat. You could use them to turn processions into processions and empty that pile. And I also have a Disciple in hand, so I could gain the last procession. And it seems fairly straightforward from that point. The teacher token here is completely superfluous. I don't need it at all. Just doing it just in case I screw something up and I need the money to buy points. So a bunch of procession tricks happen here. You could slow down the video, look through it, but effectively I'm using procession on procession a lot to gain a lot of rogues. My initial disciple on the procession will get me the last procession, and if I need to buy something, I don't think I will need to buy something, I have enough money from the teacher token on the procession pile. So as it turns out, I empty the piles completely with the procession, which is neat. I use some of my processions on Lost City just to get the draw going, just to make sure I find all my pieces. Very important that I put that plus card token there. And now you see the mass gaining of the rogues and whatever. So that is game 1 for you. Very explosive ending. Now there is some debate here. Maybe I could have put a procession in my deck sooner. I don't know. I'm not the best with the card. Anyways, if you have any advice for me on this game, you could let me know as well. Gladly appreciate learning how to use Procession better, because it's a real fun card, very explosive. Alright, thanks for watching, and I'll see you.